Hey everybody, this is So Many Sequels. I'm Josh.
I'm Garrett.
I'm David.
And
Hi,
today, yeah,
sorry,
go ahead.
Yeah, introduce yourself.
I
Go for it.
messed
Be ready
it.
to
I
go.
messed it up already.
We're
You're
still
fine.
working on our guest introductions.
Yeah,
We
it's
don't
fine.
have it. We don't have a good. No, tell us who you are. The mystery voice over there.
That's me. Hi, I am Stephen Nehrenz. I'm a friend of all these compadres here. I work at Channel 6 in Tulsa.
Yeah.
Awesome.
works
Yes.
One who everybody yells at when it rains.
That's me.
That's him. Get the weatherman. But Steven, you are, I think, self-proclaimed nerd about this stuff like we are, right? Am I correct?
At least the
Yes,
Marvel.
that is a correct observation. Well, it's Marvel, Star Wars,
Yeah.
the whole shebang. So yes, that is a correct observation.
Perfect. So we are all on the same page here, I think. We're all big Marvel people. We're very excited to talk about Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, the latest in the MCU. I don't even know what number film it would be overall. Second Doctor Strange, though.
Yeah.
It's at least movie 20-something. So what I thought we might do, since this movie is so new, is maybe we'll briefly go around and give like a really brief spoiler-free reaction. And then we'll lift the spoiler hood and we'll go nuts. Does that sound fair?
Sounds fair to me.
Okay.
Cool.
We'll just go, I guess, counterclockwise with my screen and start with David.
Oh, I'm really pleased with it, generally speaking. I have no real complaints, I have to say. I mean, that's not really true. I do have some complaints, but if someone was going to ask me, do I think they should see it? I would say, yeah, I think you should. If you love the MCU, the Marvel films, and if you were a big fan of Avengers and No Way Home, I should say Infinity War and Endgame and all those, I think you'll enjoy this for this. So I really liked it. I've been a big fan of Doctor Strange for a little while. He's not one of the ones that I knew about for like when I was a kid, but when I started to get into the movies, when Iron Man really took off and it started to seem like this was going to be a thing, that they were going to be introducing characters left and right, I got really interested in finding out as much as I could about anybody who could show up. And basically anybody who was created in the 60s is going to show up. Anybody that had Stan Lee or Steve Ditko or Jack Kirby, anybody they touched is already here. I was really excited and I've enjoyed myself. I thought that adding Wanda was a really smart move. And I have a lot of different thoughts on that, but we can get to those later. So yeah, I liked it.
I'm a big Sam Raimi fan. I underestimate how many movies of his I enjoy, and I take for granted how many movies he has done. He has a great blend of superhero movies, doing all three of the Tobey Maguire movies, and horror movies, and I feel like Doctor Strange meshed Wanda is a perfect assignment for Sam Raimi to do, and I think that he really got to Sam Raimi this movie at points, and it was a lot of fun. It was very enjoyable. I think that I think this is a movie of moments rather than necessarily a movie of deep substance. It is a good movie and has a lot of stuff going on, but I think overall for me, this was just a really fun and enjoyable watch, and it was a nice, different kind of a pace for a Marvel movie, and I enjoyed it.
Yeah. All right, Steven?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of what Garrett and David said, I agree. Like Garrett just said, the pace was different and not in a bad way, I don't think. And I did enjoy it. I think we were talking about this before seeing it yesterday, kind of expectations wise. After Spider-Man, especially, it was okay. My expectations were through the roof just with multiverse stuff. And then I kind of started going, okay, maybe bring it back down a little bit. I don't really know where they're going with this. And then after watching it, I kind of came away going, oh, okay, you know what? That was pretty good. Yeah, were there things to nitpick? Sure. But yeah, I pretty much enjoyed the pacing. There were one or two times where you're kind of like, the pacing seemed off slightly, but I mean, again, that's nitpicky stuff. I agree with Garrett that I thought the same thing. I was like, man, I don't know why I had an idea in my head of like Sam Raimi. Oh, I don't know how this is going to go because he's done a lot of things that are really good. So I don't know why I had that image of, I don't know if I'm going to Sam Raimi doing this. I don't know why, but I thought he did great. And yeah, we'll get into the spoilery stuff, but just Wanda in general was like, okay, that was something else for a lot of spoilery reasons, but I enjoyed it. And yeah, I agree. Overall, I thought it still ended up setting up some interesting stuff for the future. I don't know how to pronounce the actress's name. The girl that played him. So is that how you pronounce it? Okay.
Sochi.
I liked her. Because we were talking about the yesterday. I was like, I don't know how to pronounce her name, but I liked her. I liked America more than I thought I would, just because I don't, like you guys said, another character I know nothing about. Marvel does this all the time. And I'm like David, I've done this since I started getting really into them several years ago. And every time they introduce one that I don't know about, I'm like, okay, time to do some comic book research, whether it was Guardians or any of the ones that they've introduced. And so I kind of did that a little bit with her, but not a whole lot. And I liked her a lot too. So yeah, I agree in general, non-spoilery. I was a fan.
Awesome. Yeah. I can't disagree with anything you guys have said so far. I enjoyed it quite a lot, and I thought Sam Raimi ended up being probably one of the best choices they could make for Doctor Strange and Wanda together. Like, I felt like he really unlocked Doctor Strange and made him really compelling for the first time in his own movie. Because I thought this was a huge improvement from the first one. Huge improvement in almost every way. I loved Wanda. I have more to say about Wanda. I have more to say about America, but I loved her too. And yeah, I have a few nitpicky things just because it's not a perfect movie. There's some weird fan talk in the world right now. Some I don't agree with, some I can see, but overall, I thought it was really good and I enjoyed it a lot. Yeah. So that's our collective spoiler-free review for everybody. So if you haven't seen the movie yet, go ahead and stop now, go watch it, and come back and we'll talk about it later. And with that said, let's go ahead and tear into some spoiler territory. So in this movie, Doctor Strange runs into a young girl named America Chavez, who is a multiverse traveler. It's her power, but she can't control it. She's being hunted by, we find out, Wanda, who is going to use her to find whatever verse exists out there where she can be with her kids from WandaVision and assumedly Vision again, but she's mostly concerned about the kids in this one. So we got Wanda turn bad. We got Doctor Strange, got to stop her. Release the Kraken. What do we think?
I do want to comment. I gotta say the Sam Raimi thing. I had a good feeling it would work out because you look at the long history of how these films have done. Sam Raimi is the blueprint because Kevin Feige was a young associate producer on Spider-Man 1 and Spider-Man 2, as well as the first X-Men movies by 20th Century Fox. And Kevin has talked about when he was young and working on those movies, he studied what Sam and what the directors for X-Men, what they focused on, and said, and when he finally kind of got to this position where he could do these movies, he was like, this is what directors of these types of movies want. Let's do that. Right. So with Sam coming in, it was like he had all the tools and he didn't have to like necessarily fight the kind of fights that he had to do with Sony. It was great. The second act of this movie where Wanda goes on a murder hunt. She possesses a multiverse version of herself. And it is just creepy and cool. And it's so easy. So many people, I think, want to jump to that one scene where we have this long list of cameos and interesting like multiversal variations of other characters. But I really do think that Sam Raimi and the writer Michael Waldron, who wrote for Loki, the series, where they did manage, to my surprise, continue some of the emotional themes from the first Doctor Strange movie. You have this template where he has this broken watch that kind of symbolizes his feeling of being kind of broken. You have this relationship with Christine Palmer from the first movie, and there's this running thread of Doctor Strange being asked, are you happy? You've achieved a lot and you've done all this stuff, but are you really happy? And him kind of coming to figure out what that means for him and being able to open up the ways he never had. And this great idea of, Christine tells him in multiple realities, you always had to be the one holding the knife. You always had to be the one saving the day, being the hero. And we see that in Infinity War, in things like that, where he struggles to let go of that. And by the end of this movie, what does he do? He lets go and he lets somebody else save the day. It's so cool. They managed to pick those things up and go. I love it. I love the fact that they could have done more multiversal stuff, but I think it probably would have gotten to be just too much after a while. So I appreciate that we got to see some other versions of Doctor Strange. Gosh, there's too much to talk about. Wanda,
But I want to talk about Wanda because I know this is a Doctor Strange
Well,
movie, and I want to talk about this being a palate cleanser after Spider-Man and everything that we've gone through. It was nice to kind of have a centralized story, even though it went mega big and kind of set up a bunch of different stuff, again, that we've talked about. It was a very centralized Doctor Strange story, even though I don't think he was the star. I think Wanda was the star. Caitlin or Elizabeth Olsen was so good in this movie as an actress, as a character. I mean, it was maybe one of the most standout performances in a Marvel movie I've seen. Like she was just absolutely perfect and on point. And to see her, because I know that people like her and are a fan of her, but in the comic books, Scarlet Witch, sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. She bounces back and forth, and she's gone through so much as a character that it is nice to. I was excited to see her as a villain because she was upper tier of all Marvel villains already. Like she was just incredibly good at her delivery and the way they wrote it, and just everything was on point for her. It was so good to see. Did you have anything that stood out to you, Stephen?
I mean, yeah, I think we're all saying Wanda, and it's the obvious switch, but damn, she was good. I mean, Elizabeth Olsen as Wanda, she was so good. And like you said, immediately you're like, yep, she's one of the, I mean, because one of the nitpicky things of the Marvel fans is that, the villains can be underwhelming sometimes.
Yeah.
And she is not underwhelming in any way, shape, or form. She's kind of terrifying. And I just thought she was spectacular. I was, again, when I was trying to, almost got nitpicky afterwards, was thinking, because I think I mentioned this to a couple of you guys last night, I was like, my initial reaction was, they kind of did Wanda dirty a little bit just because of what she went through in WandaVision. And it just, initially I was like, she's just straight up bad now. But then after I rethought it, I was like, no, I mean, Garrett said this, what she just did makes sense because she has just had nothing but grief her entire life. And so of course she would snap at some point. Like what, of course she would.
Go ahead, David. What were you gonna say?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I want to say something, but I really don't want to interrupt. Josh has another go here, but I want to
appreciate the
point
effort.
something out. I want to point something out that I don't think people think about or realize. I realized it after I woke up this morning. Okay. Wanda has been given so much more than any villain has ever had for a movie because you actually understand her and you've seen, not just been told, you've seen her, where her pain comes from. You see her motivation. You want to know something funny? Wanda has the exact same motivation for why she's doing what she's doing that Caecilius, the bad guy from the first Doctor Strange movie, had. He wanted to bring the dark dimension to Earth so he could be with his wife and daughter. That is literally the same motivation that Wanda has here. She's willing to break the rules for her own selfish gain. It's the same reason, but because we've seen more and we have a chance to understand her, it's so much more rewarding than just being told about it. Now, I'm not saying that's an entire fault of the first movie. I don't need a six movie arc for Caecilius, but I'm just saying how interesting it is that when you are able to show and not tell, how much more rewarding it is. I'm sorry, Josh, go.
I think the Wanda thing is really interesting because it seems to be, we're really playing into this relationship between the Marvel films and the Disney Plus shows in a way that we haven't done yet. And I've seen, it seems like a common thread that I've seen in my early reaction gathering is that, people think that Wanda was done dirty a little bit, or that it didn't make her turn to evil didn't make sense. And the theory I have on that so far is that either people have forgotten I think it's a mid-credit scene in the WandaVision finale, where she is seen with the Darkhold being corrupted by it and turning evil, or they haven't seen the show at all, which is totally valid. I mean, if you didn't watch that show, I think this movie might be a little more difficult to follow. And you might think, that's a swift turn for her, because I didn't see the show. I didn't know any of that.
Yeah, they just didn't understand what that scene meant.
From that perspective, I get it. But when you see the pieces together, it's okay, I mean, WandaVision, the ending was that she, I don't know, found some kind of peace, but then it was revealed as the last minute twist that she did not.
Well, she made her peace with Vision.
People remember that. She made her peace with Vision. It was the kids that were different.
Necessarily make her peace with.
And I did love that. And I thought she also, Elizabeth Olsen as an actress, worked really well in a horror element. Wanda was often really scary to me. I'm about to say another awfully big spoiler, so I really feel the need to say again that I'm going to spoil some stuff. But one of the biggest jump scares for me was when she very quickly appeared out of that red fog and snapped Professor X's neck right then and there. It was like boom, and
Yeah.
it scared me. Yeah, Professor X is in this movie.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, right. Okay.
Oh yeah. By the way, also Professor X is in this movie. It's woo.
Yeah,
Like,
Wanda,
In a bigger cameo than I anticipated, to be honest with
he
you.
had his own scenes.
Yeah,
Mhm.
he
So,
stood
like-
up and walked and everything.
So yeah, Wanda hunting them was terrifying. Whether it was at the temple and going through the water and through the mirrors and all that stuff, or whether it was when she was hunting herself, like when she's like walking by and she looks at a picture of herself and the picture's
Yeah. Our
um,
camera turns and faces the camera. You're like, whoa.
and
I think Elizabeth Olsen has really intense eyes, and I think that it worked to her advantage in this movie.
and I want to get to the Illuminati scene next.
Oh
but
yeah, for sure.
I do want to mention though, we were talking about the pacing of this movie, how it's different. Sam Raimi, I think that's his touch, is that he has a smoothness to his transitions. Like a scene will be somewhere and then like things will move just a little bit and all of a sudden it's a different scene. It's very like his transitions are very subtle and it just works.
And he expands so well. It starts off every movie that he does. It starts off with this slow kind of tense, like it takes a little bit and then it hits that middle and it goes, okay. And then he just kicks it into overdrive and goes absolutely batshit crazy sometimes. And that's what he does in this. I mean, he has a Fantasia fight. It's amazing. There are so many just cool moments that he delivers on. But yes, the Illuminati scene, David.
Let's get to it, man. The Illuminati. It was what I thought. It was a little bit of what I thought it was gonna be, and then things that I'd never thought they would do that in a million years. And so we're introduced by. We were right. I was right that he was in this movie, but it wasn't how I thought. Chiwetel Ejiofor returns as Baron Mordo, the Sorcerer Supreme of his universe. He introduces the Illuminati as Captain Carter, who you might remember from What If. Black Bolt, played by Anson Mount from the failed Inhumans TV show.
That was Anson Mount?
That was Anson Mount, as you might know him from Strange New Worlds, Doc.
Yeah, I do.
And then you have Lashana Lynch from Captain Marvel playing this version of Captain Marvel. John Krasinski, Jim himself, as
literal. I gasped.
Absolute
Fantastic Four. We've all seen the fan castings. We all thought it could. Okay, maybe. And then there it was. And it was just as good as I would hope. Who knows where that will go in the future? But then my favorite moment, even though we all knew it, we all saw it in the trailers, right? I assume we all heard the voice. We all had a good feeling it was coming. But when Professor X glided on screen and it went a little X-Men animated series riff, I laughed out loud. It not in like a this is funny, but in like I was happy for myself kind of laugh in the theater. Felt very good about it.
What did you think about that moment when Professor X rolled onto scene?
Like David said, unfortunately they kind of ruined it in the trailers, which I hate when they do that, but most movies ruin stuff in the trailer, so I wasn't surprised. But yes, when I 100%, as soon as that classic movie, the music started playing, I was just like, oh, there it is. I was like, that added something because his introduction had been kind of spoiled, but that immediately was like, oh, that redeemed it for me because I was like, okay, there we go. Yeah, so I loved his introduction with the music, and same with Krasinski. I mean, you wonder, but I was like, yeah, they've been fan casting him for years. I don't know. And then when he showed up, it was like, whoa, that was probably the biggest whoa moment for me.
I remember whenever he was in the running early on to be considered for Captain America, I think I told Josh this yesterday. I created a Facebook fan page of like an attempt to get John Krasinski as Captain America. I was like, this page, and it'll definitely get Krasinski. It got like 20 likes. It was ridiculous, but it was really cool. And because they handled it the way that they handled it, they introduced all these people, fan casting, bringing this stuff in. But the fun part is this is a horror movie. And it's a multiverse movie. So he's in a different universe. Are these people real? Are these people going to be cast as those people in the future? Who knows? Because if you see the movie, what happens to him? So it is a very interesting thing what they're going to do move forward. But even if they don't, they gave you that moment and it was so freaking good.
Yeah. And because of Loki, we know that some variants look exactly alike and some look completely different. So John Krasinski could be the Fantastic Four of that universe, but the MCU's John Krasinski could be a different guy, and it could be just a moment of fan service. We gave you that thing you wanted. but we're not going to do that going forward.
I just want to go on the record and say I will be very disappointed if they do that, because I don't want fan service. I want the real thing.
People have already started a set, but also good thread, which is now that John Watts has stepped down as director for MCU's Fantastic Four. People want John Krasinski to direct and star, which after Quiet Place 1 and 2, I'd be totally cool with. I think
absolutely
give him a shot.
He kind of knows what he's doing.
He does.
Yeah,
give him a shot.
I thought the exact same thing. I was like, if they go another way and cast someone else for the MCU's Fantastic Four, I kind of want to give them some credit for doing that, for being bold enough to be like, no, we're going to do something different. But I want it to be like, so.
He's just such a famous person that it's hard to see it as a ruse.
Yeah.
Well,
he's so famous.
Again, that scene, a lot of those people did not make it out very well. You know what I'm saying?
And that is another thing I've seen is people seem to be upset that they were introduced and then all wiped out pretty quickly. But y'all, what are you smoking?
Different
you
universe.
know that it's not real.
Different universe.
It's
a horror movie. You have to have big people die in a horror movie. It has to happen. This is a absolute horror movie.
I tell you what,
this is what they wanted.
And
I tell you what,
people that did not make it out alive were worthy of dying, and they were fun surprise deaths.
Yes, it was hardcore. Their deaths are like not meaningless, but also like we know that they were expendable for the sake of showing just how dangerous Wanda is. And I tell you what, she bodied these cats as people.
Oh yeah. Black Bolt and Krasinski go down without a fight. A fight.
There was a part of me, not that I'm one of these people, but when Captain Carter was still hanging in there for a little while, I thought of in the movie, I thought of that. Did you guys ever see that Robot Chicken bit with Molar, the attorney and dentist? Where these two guys come out to fight Molar, right? And he's a dentist and he ties one of them up with dental floss. And then the other guy comes up and he gets stabbed in the eye with a drill. And I just kind of felt Black Bolt had to be like, okay, how come I got the drill in my eye, but Captain Carter gets thrown around the room with magic powers? Captain Carter would get her due, don't worry. In one of the bloodiest images in a while, this movie had some bloody stuff for the MCU, which is fine by me generally. But that was cool.
My most favorite hardcore moment in the movie, and not in terms of gore, but in just terms of this is, I think, defined under metal, is when Sam Raimi really lets his freak flag fly, I think, and has Doctor Strange use dark magic to possess his own corpse, and then with that dark magic create giant bat-like wings out of the souls of the damned.
I know.
And then fly into the mountain.
I'll tell you what,
creepy.
I figured out what he was going to do about 6 seconds before he did it. I went, wait a minute. And then he went, who said they had to be alive? And I went, and as it was happening, as the music swelled, I went, oh, and I was like, this is going to be insane. And then it was insane.
I can see how some people would see that as jumping the shark a little bit, because I found it that way. But again, you have to let,
it was so cool.
If you're gonna let Sam Raimi be Sam Raimi, then jumping the shark is a bit of it. It happens, and because of who it was directing this movie, I had zero issues with it. But if you're not a fan of Sam Raimi, and I could feel like that could be a moment where people went, okay, that's a little much for me.
I also think that there's an extent of, you have these characters like Doctor Strange and Wanda, right? And Scarlet Witch, who have these immeasurable potential that everybody talks about. Like, oh, if they ever went full force, they'd be unbeatable. It's kind of a waste to never let them do that kind of thing, to never have them do some bat crazy stuff. So I really maybe it's too far, maybe it's too weird. I don't know. Like I think it's just weird enough, because who knows when they'll ever make another Doctor Strange movie. Get your good ideas out now.
Then you got Christine with her weird light cannon being like, go back to hell. Boom.
Yeah.
That was in the first Doctor Strange movie. You remember? Yeah. He held it up and he was like, you don't know how to use that. You remember? and Doctor Strange was like, remember?
They had some good callbacks.
See, Sam Raimi, he watched that movie.
Do we have any box office numbers, David?
We have some opening day numbers. The early estimate right now for opening day is 90 million total, which is what will be, I believe, one of either the 8th or 9th highest opening day ever. It is right in line with Infinity War in terms of that number. My early estimate for opening weekend is going to be somewhere between 190 and 210. I think is pretty reasonable, which would be almost what Doctor Strange 1 made in its entire domestic gross.
Yeah, that's a big
Um,
number for a Doctor
would-
Strange movie. I'm honestly surprised.
It would make
Mhm.
it would make it immediately, if that number holds out, let's say it's 200 million, just to be in the middle. If it makes 200 million in its opening weekend, it would be the number 2 movie of the year immediately. With just the Batman ahead of it. It's at 90 million at this estimate for day one. It's already the number 5 movie of the year. We are still coming out of a pandemic. There are still a lot of movies that haven't not necessarily the most successful movies have opened this, but it is like this. This could be another sign that kind of shows that not every movie is going to succeed right now, but Marvel Studios movies definitely will. I won't say Marvel movies. People say that generally, like they'll throw in like Morbius,
The summer of
and-
Morbius, baby.
and things like
Get
that
it
with
out.
that. And it's technically it's a Marvel character, but it's not Marvel Studios. Okay. So that's the thing.
Yeah.
But anyway, that would be huge. I don't know where it'll finish because much like the Batman, it probably only has a between 45 and 90-day window in theaters. So how long of a run it'll have is hard to say. They left Spider-Man in theaters longer than those windows. So maybe if it does really well, they'll leave it in longer, but I would assume it's going to be on Disney Plus in about a month and a half.
Yeah.
Wow.
But yeah, that's all I've got. There's nothing else to really report. It has made 229 million overseas already, or worldwide already. So overseas has done really well too. So that number's always a little higher first week though.
Wow.
Wow.
Well,
So-
why don't, as we kind of wind down here, why don't we give our own little 0 to 5 rating on this movie?
So I'm gonna give it a 4.5. I'm gonna say it's nearly perfect for me. We didn't even talk about the fact that Charlize Theron showed up in this movie. I know, right? When it happened, I was like, Charlize Theron, and my wife was like, I didn't know you were such a big fan of hers. I'm like, I'm not necessarily. But it would be like
She's
if
just a
Brad
big
Pitt
name.
showed up.
Big
Somebody
name.
you totally don't expect just appears. It'd be like if George Clooney walked in and went, I need to talk to you, man. You'd be like, George Clooney? That's how I
Or
felt.
like if a
Charlize
camera
Theron.
panned and there was John Krasinski.
Yeah. that happened. It'd be like if John Goodman showed up. It'd be like, why is he here? I can't believe it was John Goodman. Like, I just kind of thought Charlize Theron was the kind of actress who wasn't going to be in these movies. So that was crazy. I love the Bruce Campbell, even though it's a gag ending, even though it's a gag post-credit scene. And generally, I don't like the gag post-credit scene. I love Bruce Campbell's gag at the end.
Bruce Campbell's the best. Always
Bruce
stay.
Campbell with the slow pan in or the quick pan in to do it. Great. Anyway, 4.5, practically
Yeah, one
perfect.
4.5.
in my opinion.
I'm gonna go with a 4. It's a little bit lower. My main nitpick is I felt like we didn't see enough of the multiverse.
Yeah.
We saw 2-3 multiverses, maybe.
Mhm.
I want to know more about them.
Yeah.
That's my nitpick, though.
That's fine.
True.
I think in the moment I think after this conversation I'm gonna raise it to a 4. But for me, I think this lands right in between a 3.5. Like my ideal ranking for this is a 3.75.
What about you, Steven?
Yeah, what do you think, Steven?
I'm
Your
a
inaugural rating.
boy. Can I give it a 4.25? Is that
I'll-
an
Of
extremely?
course.
We'll
I will
allow it.
Of course, the math weather guy is giving some weird, like very specific
4.23.
number. Yeah, I'm gonna rate it pi. No, I have 4.25 because I was like 4, and then I was like, no, honestly, I liked it a little more than that. 4.25. Now I agree with Josh. I was like, I wanted to see a little more, maybe just a few more
Just a little
universes.
more.
I felt like we got a good amount of multiverse stuff, but I wanted to see a couple more universes. And I agreed with this was backtracking, but what you mentioned earlier about, or I think it was you mentioned that given how everything had pan aspect in Spider-Man, I kind of was like, oh my God, we're going to just see everything. We're going to see every variant, every iteration here. And they didn't do that. And initially I was like, oh, darn. But then I kind of thought, no, actually, I'm good with this because at a certain point, it would have just become a movie of cameos. And that as fun as it would have been in the moment, I would have looked back later and been like, okay, that was, you just, spent a lot of time with cameos. All that to be said, yeah, I'm like a 4.25 because again, Wanda was spectacular. There were some nitpicks here and there, but I was a fan.
Awesome. Those are high marks from all of us. The movie, we literally came out yesterday, because I won't count Thursday, as of this recording, so the letterbox score, which we would normally have a guessing game, is a little too fluid right now, I feel like, so we'll skip that portion.
I'll save that for a tiebreaker later then.
Save it then, whatever you were going to do.
Good call.
But that's it for the show. Obviously, we could have talked much longer about this movie, I think, but we have to be stopped sometimes.
We don't need a 2-hour podcast for a 2-hour movie.
No, you don't.
We don't
Some
need
people
more.
do, though.
We have done that.
We have done that.
We'll do it. We may do it again someday.
So yeah, thanks for listening or watching, whatever you did. Find us online at SoManySequels.com. You'll find all our old episodes there and our links to our social. Thank you, Stephen, for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. This was fun.
Great. We're excited. We want to try to have you back again sometime, I'm sure.
I would love to be back if you ever would have me back.
What's a big franchise you're a fan of other than the Marvel movies?
Yeah, my Star Wars love is much.
We'll bring you in for the prequels.
Oh gosh, yeah, I can say plenty about the prequels or any.
We haven't done that yet.
No.
All right, still one of those red herrings out there.
Yeah. Well, we will see y'all next time. Bye-bye.